If you are looking for cheap, safe, and reliable FC24 coins as well as other game currencies, game keys, gift cards, and more, take a look at u7buy.com. Doing so via the link in the description would really help me out. Hi there, and welcome back to another video. I'm really excited about making this one too. This one's going to be part 2 of a 2-part series. First part was just me playing some live gameplay with 2 different playstyles and not explaining what they were. Spoiler alert here, we're going to get into it right off the bat. First playstyle was significantly more direct, which came with a lot of problems. Second playstyle was more creative. It involved way more players on the field instead of just attacking with 4 or 5 per attack and maybe attacking with 7 or 8. And it involved working the ball backwards a lot more. That accomplishes specific things on the field. So this is going to be the best explanation I can give at the moment of how I play, how to play like me, and again, what it's doing for me, what it's accomplishing on the field. I've gotten a lot of wonderful feedback. I'm probably going to talk about this every video, but I didn't expect to be putting out this kind of video, especially this early in my channel. But considering the amount of you that have come and said, how do you dribble, or how do I dribble like you do? How do I work through the press like you do? How do you create so much space, your passing lanes, your just general play style? How do you play pretty, attacking, nice football? And especially in a game like this, right, that we all have problems with. And again, I didn't expect this to resonate with so many of you. I didn't expect so many of you to idolize this kind of playstyle. It's been really nice on my end. So once again, over the moon about all of that, but I feel like I want to give something back to all of you, so this is going to be, again, the best way I can figure out how to do that right now. Let's jump right into it. I've got a little hierarchy here. This is just basically a shortcut that when I'm attacking, I run through this list of things in my head, and it's not that in-depth, right? It's very quick, eye scanning the field, just kind of checking off checkboxes. So it's not like an in-depth, you're not running through paragraphs or sentences in your head or anything like that, but you are needing to pick your eyes up and recognize what state the field is in and how to attack based on that. It's nice to have set ways to attack based on what state that game is in, because if it's significantly more taxing on yourself if you're trying to be creative in every situation and you don't realize how to do specific things to accomplish certain things that you need to do. So I think having like little shortcuts that you can do of, okay, the field's in this kind of situation, this is what I do about it in these spots, is really important, especially when you're doing like 20 weekend league games in a row. You can't focus that hard on every single one of them. You've got to have your flow state. You've got to have your state you can get into where you're just kind of playing relaxed and, simple football for yourself that isn't going to drain you over, the 3 hours of playing, and then you just end up tired by the end and losing all of your games. This is what helps me accomplish that, and then it's also what helps me create more beautiful attacks. The most important thing, I think, is if you can't tell me, or I guess if you can't tell yourself, what shape the opponent is in, I don't think you're ready to attack. That's really important to keep in mind, because a lot of people will just get the ball back on defense, let's say, and then work the ball forward because you're supposed to work the ball forward, because the point of the game is to go and score goals. And then you're playing like the game owes you goals. The game does not owe you anything. The opponent doesn't owe you anything. They don't owe you a certain play style. They don't owe you being aggressive, I wish some players would do that more, but, if they're going to defend with all AI, then can't really break through it. And then you have to realize, okay, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to accomplish anything by being direct. What can I do about that? So let's take a look here through these 5 bullet points. First one's going to be, look at the opponent's shape. Are they disorganized, organized and stretched, or organized and compact? These are the most frequent, most easily recognizable states that I can figure out how to communicate, and also basically what I look for myself. It's a little bit more complicated, obviously. I've played this game for 11 years now, since FIFA 13. You develop your own way of playing and all of that, but as a real simple guide, if you're struggling in a match especially, I think this is a really important thing to keep in mind. Just the 3 easy basic states the opponent can be in. Number 2, look at your own shape. Can you sustain progressing forward while maintaining open passing lanes? This is really important to me because a lot of times when you're doing that direct play style, you work the ball forwards and then you can't do anything. You work it forwards too quickly, and then the opponent can immediately collapse on you because they're already condensed and compact, and then they just shut off the ability to move the ball backwards, and then you're stuck with not just trying to dribble one player, but 2, 3, 4 players. You've got no space to do anything. So if you're looking to move the ball forward to your attackers, when you do so, can you at least move the ball back to the player you passed it to originally? Or if you're going up to the offense, can you move it back to any of the midfielders or any of the defenders? Any line previously? Because if you recognize you can work it to the forwards, but you can't move it backwards, then it's probably not going to be the best idea to move it to the attackers yet. You can't sustain it. You're not ready to sustain that attack, so you need to do something to create the attack to be sustainable. Number 3 here, if the opponent is disorganized, look to exploit the space that's already there. This is the easiest and most effective attacking option. That's really true. If the opponent's dragging the center backs around, then they've broken their back 4 line. And I'm talking about all of this as a 4-4-2 because that's what almost everybody defends in. But if they break their line of back 4, you're probably going to have a player that's running into that space. So all you got to do is 1 or 2 passes, maybe up and then back into that space, or you can do an over the top or anything like that. When the opponent is disorganized, you can be direct. So I'm not saying that direct first play style that I did in the first game is always going to be bad. You saw it score some goals. It's just you can only be direct and have that attack be the right option or have it be sustainable if the opponent is in a shape where it's easy to exploit. Point 4, if they're not disorganized, can we create that? If they're organized and stretched, can we play in pockets of space that will cause the opponent to disorganize themselves to close the gaps? I'm going to talk about the pockets of space actually on the field in the clips a little bit later. It's a little bit harder to explain like on this text sheet here. But if there's maybe 6, 7, 8 yards of gap between the opponent's defenders and the opponent's midfielders, you've got a little pocket there to play in. And the opponent has to do something to close that pocket. So they're going to drag a midfielder out of position, or they're going to drag a center back to come to you, which is going to break one of their lines, which will create space and cause the opponent to be disorganized, which you move back up this hierarchy here and say, okay, the opponent was compact but stretched. I caused them to become no longer compact. They are disorganized. Now I can go to play the direct style, as long as you can sustain that attack. And obviously the sustainability on the attack is a little bit situational. Sometimes you got to be risky on offense. I recognize that. You play a pass that you're not guaranteed is going to be completed, but you think, well, okay, you can go for it. But generally, I want my attacks to be sustainable, right? Or at least be high probability opportunities to move the ball forward into. Number 5, if the opponent is organized and compact, make them lose compaction. Work the ball horizontally or vertically, sometimes moving backwards. This is, I think, what most of you are talking about when you're talking about the press, or when you're saying, I really don't know how to break down the opponents. Normally it's because instead of that 5, 6, 7 yard gap I was talking about between the midfielders and the defenders, it becomes like a 3-yard gap, and there's nothing you can do to move forward into that space. Anytime you try to move into it, you'll have 4 to 5 defenders on you collapsing immediately. Your players don't make runs through it because it breaks the attacking AI completely, so you have to do something to make them no longer compact like that. Normally it's by stretching. If they're organized and compact, then we're working, again, the idea here with the hierarchy is you're moving from the lowest point to the highest point. You want to be at as high a point on here as you can. So if you can be direct, you should. If you can't be direct, then you should try to play in the pockets. If you can't play in the pockets, you have to create the pockets. So you're working your way back up the list like that. When the opponent is compact, you have to do something to make them uncompact, which for me is normally working the ball backwards. That will cause them from going from like 2 to 3 yard space between their midfielders and their defenders to 5 to 6 yard space. And now by working the ball backwards, if you work it back forwards, now you've got these pockets to play in. Now you can do little bits of dribbling, you can do your little passes that will cause the opponent to have to defend the space that is there now, which is going to cause them to disorganize themselves, and then now you've got even better space to attack into. So let's get into it here. This is probably what I get asked the most, or at least, about how to play through this kind of press, and also about my dribbling. But let's talk about the press here, because breaking this down took me almost all of this year to really learn how to do before I remembered, I just need to attack with more players in the field. I used to play 4-2-3-1 in all of the past FIFAs. The false 9 is my favorite formation systematically. Like the triangles and the connections between all the players, the overlaps and the freeformness you can do with all of it, the fact that the center forward drops off so it creates space for everybody else, and all of the things like that are just what I kind of idolize in football the most. But this formation hasn't worked for the past like 5 or 6 FIFAs, so it's been the 4-2-3-1 every year before that. And with 2 pivots, I found myself working the ball with them and the center backs a lot more, and then this year I kind of forgot about the center backs. So part of this is going to be talking about how to attack with the center backs. Let's get out my drawing tool here. Hopefully this will be helpful. I don't have black as a color for this little drawing tool, so let's accept that blue will be for the black team. I'm going to be attacking as the red team, and we'll have yellow as the ball. So we're thinking about this in terms of the hierarchy, right? Are they disorganized? No, there's nothing I can do about really going through here. If I work the ball from like here to there, then all that's really going to happen is they collapse on me, and if this player is cutting off this lane back here, this one maybe cuts off that one, then there's nothing I can do. I can't even work the ball backwards. I'd have to do like a lob pass back here or something, and they've cut off all the space to dribble, so I'm not ready to sustain moving the ball forward there. What else can I do? There's not a lot, actually, so I have to do something. Again, they're not disorganized. They're not organized and stretched either, because they're, like this midfielder and this defender are maybe 3 yards apart. That's how it feels when you're under high press, right? Oh, and I guess I should explain. Organized to me means flat lines. There's a little more to it, but it's partially the opponent's readiness to defend. You can think about it that way, but for simplicity's sake and as an easy way to flick your head up and look at the opponent and recognize what shape they're in. If they're in flat lines, they're probably one of the organized shapes. Disorganized would look more like this. So instead of this flat line, you'd have like that, right? Which means a player can now get into the bigger space here, as opposed to the smaller space you would have here, right? So if they're organized and compact, then we've got to work through that hierarchy. How do we make them not into that shape? Well, what the pros do is just do this, right? All the time. It's so annoying. I hate doing it because the ball's in the air for like 5 seconds. It's not pretty. There's nothing to do while the ball's in the air. It's really hard to defend, which makes me feel bad. I try not to do things that are like just completely bypassing the opponent, because I just don't feel like there's much skill involved there. That's why I like working with all my dribbling, because hey, you do technically have the ability to defend me. But they create the space by working the ball here, and then by having the ball wide, everybody shifts over a little bit. So nope, not a square, not a rectangle. Instead of being in these lines, the lines will be more instead like here, right? If that makes sense, which means there's a significantly bigger gap on this side of the field, which means all you have to do is that or that, which again, I don't like doing. It doesn't feel very realistic to me. Obviously, like Trent will do this in real life. I've seen Barcelona do this. I've seen a lot of teams do it. It is a realistic tactic. It's just not one that I idolize in the teams that I watch. But there's a reason the pros all do this, because it is kind of technically the most effective. And if you're playing against pro players, then, their press is going to be harder than everybody else's. They're harder to break down. But I don't like doing it. But that is what we would call horizontal stretching. So working the ball this way, right? That's assuming we're looking at the field this direction, but that's fine. Because that's what this would generally be called. In like a Cruyffian tactic system, total football, you'd have your like setup like this, which is forcing the opponents to be as wide as possible, which means there's going to be more gaps to run into in what you'd call the half spaces here, so you can attack in that direction. And I do use, obviously, some of that with having like my overlapping fullbacks. It's going to cause the opponents to be somewhat stretched, obviously. That is something I'm trying to work and specifically accomplish, is horizontal stretching. And I do it in other ways, I just don't like doing it in this way. So instead of horizontal, I primarily use vertical, which is instead this direction, which means to stretch the opponent out of this shape they're in. Instead, I'll work the ball. If it's with the fullback, I'll work it back this way. What that's going to accomplish is instead of the opposition shifting over to this side of the field, instead they're going this way. And they don't really retain this shape, right? Eventually they're going to work into more like this shape. And instead of your 2 yards in between the players here, now you've generated 5 yards in between. This requires proficiency with your center backs. They have to be decent enough dribblers and passers, and you have to have your head picked up enough, and then you're kind of playing soccer like chess. We're going to talk about that a little bit later, but you do have to make your passes, you know. I'm not just passing with this player and then, I'm going to see what options I'll have. I'm passing with you because I know that's going to maybe draw this player in, and I know that in 3 moves time, I'm going to have this, and then this, and then this, right? It is a little bit more dangerous, of course, if you lose the ball here, then you're more susceptible to a higher quality attack, but, part of that's being confident with your center backs and your CDM there, and part of that's being able to think a few steps ahead, if you're making this pass back this way, knowing that it'll drag a player out in a specific way. Okay, if this guy goes here, then I've created a little depth here, then I can do a little passing move like that, and then that's going to draw this one out of position, and you make that pass. Now I've got to run here, just being able to think a couple steps ahead. So you should be, when you're making a move like this, or, technically any attack in this game, but particularly when you're moving backwards, you should be looking to, or you should be thinking a couple steps ahead. Okay, what is this actually accomplishing? What's it going to open up, so you know where to be looking? Let's move on to... So that's, I guess the one other thing to keep in mind with this is, when you are moving up the field, just keep in mind that, there's the button, they don't keep this shape when they're moving forward, and the center backs really don't move past this line. The furthest forward I've ever seen the defensive line is here, just above halfway line. So it really is just the center mids and the attackers that will stretch. It's not really the back line. So you will create your gaps around here if you can just draw them out. So don't be worried about keeping the compact shape of this, but just further up the field, and now all of a sudden you're being pressed all the way back here with all of their players. No, it's really just the front 6 that can move forward. So once you get them forward, now you're creating a bunch of gaps here. Now your opponent's a little bit more stressed. They're going to have to pull players out of position to cover the gaps that are left, and then there's your chance to attack. So that's the high line. Let's actually cover disorganized first, because we'll just go work backwards on the hierarchy. This is the easiest one to attack. This is a poor defensive shape. The midfield's a little bit out of line. The defense is significantly out of line. Once you've got your opponent in that kind of shape, it's just working the ball through them to find the gap that they've left. This is really simple. If I've got the ball, I don't know, let's say here. All I need to do is maybe that, or skip the center mid and just go forward like that. Ball's out wide, then maybe it's like that, All you have to do is work your triangles. This is pretty simple. And just picking your head up. That is something actually really important to mention is if you have a player, if you've ever seen Pirlo play, Pirlo's, let's say, getting the ball here. He's receiving a 5-yard pass there, and he knows it's not able to be intercepted. This player's not going to be able to get there or maybe pressure him that hard on his first touch. He's getting this first pass here. When the ball's here, he's scanning. When the ball's here, he's scanning that way. When the ball's here, he's scanning. When the ball's here, he's scanned again, he knows it's not getting intercepted, so he doesn't need to be looking at the ball as it's traveling until he's taking his first touch. In FIFA, you don't need to be looking at your player as they're dribbling until they're getting pressured. So you should be starting to, if you're trying to implement this kind of thing, start to recognize when you're not under pressure of losing the ball, so that you can start picking your head up and recognizing, okay, this is the opponent's shape. Am I in good shape? Can I sustain my attack? All of that kind of stuff. So maybe I'll try to point out a couple moments in the match scenarios where this is where I'd say pick your head up, this is where I say pick your head up, that kind of thing. But once you recognize the opponent's shape, pretty easy just to get in behind in a spot like this. You've just got to recognize what your triangles are or what your dribbling opportunities are. If we're looking at, nope, this one. When I say pockets of space, it's going to mean, you know, little gaps like this. Once the midfield is more back here, then you've not really got a pocket here, but this whole gap, you know, something you can operate in. So then normally for me, a lot of people compliment my dribbling, and I think I took that a little bit too hard, and I'm like, okay, I'll just score all of my goals with dribbling. And what I kind of missed is, no, a lot of my dribbling is creating space for others. So when you're in that pocket, what the opponent has to do is close the pocket. They can't leave you in space here forever. I mean, if this is Ribery, I'll probably just take a finesse shot, or, you know, if they leave me too much, whoops. If they leave me too much space, then I will just go here and score. So what the opponent has to do is move up to cover the space, and now they're leaving space somewhere else. So I think I've been going like, okay, I'll just dribble past you. But in reality, what I probably should be doing is I'll just dribble and bait you out of space even more, and now I've got the pass here. But I really find moving the ball into pockets valuable because the opponent really rushes to close that space. You know, if you work the ball out wide, then all of a sudden, okay, we're moving a lot of players out of position to try and cover so that you don't have this much space out here, right? If you work the ball in here, all of a sudden you're being closed down this way, which might open something else. And a lot of times when they stretch like this player won't step over all that far, so you might have a bigger pocket here, or if they do step over, then you've got the bigger pocket here. They're not great at maintaining, even the AI, it's not great at maintaining one even line. So you'll have like this one stretch very far, and maybe this one does, and this one also does, but this one doesn't. Or these two do, and this one doesn't. So you'll find the pockets somewhere, but they're not great at moving as a full unit in situations like that. So that's why I find it really valuable working the ball into that pocket, and then they're going to have to close you down. Just keep in mind, you know, I'm not working the ball here to score immediately. I'm working the ball here to generate some kind of attack, you know, generate some kind of opportunity to pull somebody out to attack with somebody else, most likely. And then we'll go through this one really quickly. It's very similar to what we were talking about up here. It's just, you know, with attacking the goal in mind. But same concept, if you work the ball back to your center backs, then maybe this one's going to step, and then this one steps to fill the gap. This one's left, and now you've generated your pocket. And that's the value of moving the ball backwards, if you're able to stretch these players all the way back forward. Now you're in the pocket, and now we've moved to, you know, move the ball backwards, generate the pocket. Now it's, instead of compact, it's stretched, and then bait the opposition out, and now instead of being stretched, they're disorganized. Does that make sense? So you're kind of working from, if it's, you know, further down in the hierarchy, moving back up and trying to create your more valuable chances, and it's pretty easy, I'm finding, just to bait the opponents out of their shape by moving backwards, holding the ball, lingering a little bit with the center backs, and, you know, lingering in pockets of space, and then you'll just have basically the opposition move out of position for you. Even if they're not trying to, a lot of times the AI will, just to kind of panic and cover all the spaces. Let's get into the clips, and I'll actually start showing you all of that stuff. So starting off here, remember that the first clips were the less idealized, more direct playstyle. And I'll talk about the problems with it, although in this first one, we can see immediately the opponent's disorganized because this is Theo Hernandez, the left back, and there's going to be some problems created by the left back needing to go all the way back there. Hullet's going to step forward a little bit. We'll create a lot of space out there. So this one's pretty easy, just to work the ball forward into that space. I feel confident moving forward to Rafinha here because I know even if I get pressured, even if the first touch wasn't great, that I can at least, I've got the one passing lane to be safe out there. So I feel like I can move the ball forward. And then this is me being really direct, but again, sometimes this works. And actually this opponent is controlling Giroud only and then spamming stand tackle with Giroud. So it's not perhaps the greatest clip, but it was easy enough to get in behind. I'm not going to linger too much on these clips because I think this was a bit of an easier opponent. There's always a bit of like disorganization on free kicks, so you can see the opponent's shape. Defensive line is in a good shape, the midfield isn't, but I'm not very well set up. So I have to linger a little bit with Rafinha. Kind of trying to bait the opponent, but again, it's been really easy because they're just spamming stand tackle with Rolfo. But you can see a little bit of lingering here. I do draw out just a little bit of pocket there. And because the opponent's not keeping a good midfield shape, and I've moved my players around pretty well so that they're able to make some creative runs off the ball. I have generated the space up here. Should have been a goal. Oh well. This I'm not confident. I'm getting caught up anyway, but also if I keep going with Rafinha, I don't think I'm going to have any support, so we'll work it back. But again, the more direct play style, so we're going to go forward and maybe force it a little bit. Although again, the opponent's being really aggressive. I just kind of, you overestimate your center back's ability to accelerate sometimes, so you're almost trying to bait this pass out, but then they just leave it open for me anyway. Little skill move, easy to get behind. Going through these pretty quickly, I think the next games will show off what I'm talking about a little bit better. So again, this more direct play style, this is me really pushing forward with Rafinha. I don't have the best support behind anymore. Remember I was talking about the 3-2-5 shape where you've got all your like 5 attackers here. I've only got 4 because the match just started and everybody's in the wrong spot. But I also don't have my supporting center mid, so I'm not in the best shape to really support an attack here. And then even as I get forward to Neymar, I should be dribbling to make the pass to Musiala here, and instead, because I'm doing the direct play style, I'm dribbling selfishly with Neymar. It almost works, but you can see had significantly better opportunities to make a better attack there, and I'm not going for it. Same thing with Ribery. I do actually have a pretty creative opportunity to do back here, and then maybe I can do something with Neymar. Instead, being direct, trying to get in behind where there isn't space, and also pulling myself away from my other teammates. Rafinha's got a decent amount of support, but you can tell I'm going to have to, or you can see why I'm needing to linger. I don't have enough players up here to really support my attack, so I'm trying to hold on to the ball a little bit longer, and I'm not picking my head up well enough to read Bentancur's body language, so I don't anticipate the tackle there. This is me not recognizing I don't have much support here with Lahm. I'm trying to bait out the run from Ribery, but I just don't have much support compared to how many defenders they have around. I've got 4 players, they've got 4, but their 4 are significantly closer together or in the way of my 4. You can tell how intercepted that situation is. I really should just be going back here with Lahm, but I mess up. Again, because playing the direct style. Here's a situation it works. I mean, if you're going to leave that kind of gap, then again, if the opponent's disorganized enough, you take that space. This is going to be the best attack you can generate is, moving into the space behind. But again, being too direct with Ribery, I've got a decent opportunity to work it backwards and then again be creative somewhere here. I might be able to do this pass, that pass. Normally your attacking AI can make good runs off the ball if you're working the ball like this, but they never make this run if you're just going here. So Neymar is only going to make this run forward and maybe forward and then kind of back and then forward again. But if I do work like this, he will make the creative run. That's the value of having the ball with your midfielders, is your attackers can be in front of you. It sounds really simple, but a lot of people won't think of it that way. If I have the ball with Ribery, and the opponent's in the flat defensive line, and my players normally just kind of run into it because the attacking AI is bad in this game, you're not creating a lot of depth, and you're missing all of your triangles. You don't actually have a solid foundation here to do any passing plays. So I'm just kind of, by not looking backwards, I'm limiting myself to technically 3 attackers, but also not really having the opportunity to use them at all. by working backwards, I've actually got everyone in front of me, and sometimes that can be like this pass, and then Ribery will make the run in behind, I can do that, or you'll have a good run, again, made off of you. So there's so much value to working it backwards just to go forwards again, but when you're looking to get the ball only forward to your forwards, once you get the ball all the way forward, with those attackers, you don't actually have much else you can accomplish with them. You're missing the players in front of them to also pass to. So when you get the ball to your attackers, you should be realizing, I'm either going to try to score with this move like pretty quickly, or I'm moving it forward to them with the purpose of moving it backwards. This is pretty decent here, and then I'm too aggressive with Navas. This is a good situation to use tech dribbling. Somebody did ask, so in a situation like this, tech is really for me only when I've got maybe 4+ yards of space or something like that around me, because like the startup acceleration, it accelerates okay, but it's really hard to decelerate out of it, and there's only a couple skill moves you can do out of it, so it's really just exploiting space when there's already space. It's not like trying to create space. Or I can create space if I'm like going up this way, but then again, you've got to be wary about how you're slowing down. But tech is really only if you've got enough space in between the other players. So you'll see me transition into L1. This turns into strafe dribbling here. And it's some good dribbling, but you can see I limit myself from all of my options. I take myself into a situation where I'm no longer able to sustain the attack. So instead, I've also kind of got a weird midfield shape because everyone's just compact and I don't really have my good, triangle passing lanes anymore. I've got Fabinho, who I should be utilizing, and then maybe work it out wide and just let everyone reset. As it is, again, too direct. I do probably also have some good passing lanes like that. But again, that was the point of this playstyle, to show kind of the weakness of always just trying to get the ball forward. This should not have worked. This is partially to say that direct can work. Sometimes if you force the ball forward enough, it will just work, and sometimes if the opponent's just barely disorganized enough, it'll work as well. But I like to, again, have more sustainability in my attacks, and I think it looks prettier, it feels better to play. But also being selfish, I should be dribbling here with Rafinha to create space for Ribery. I should be trying to bait Ramos down here so that I can do little dribble, and then you've created the depth to be able to make that pass. It is worth mentioning as well, that's part of the... So when I was talking about having your midfield here back there, work the ball back so you have players forward in front of you to get the ball to. It's like if you've ever done like training, you play like high school soccer or something, they'll tell you it's easier to make a ball onto a diagonal run rather than like a straight ball onto a straight run. So like if you're making a run here, it's hard to make a pass like this, but if you're making this run, then it's much easier to make that pass onto. So it's part of that. Like if you get Rafinha here and I am able to make this pass, it is a bit of a harder pass to make that one though than it is to do that one, if that makes sense. So create that little bit of depth, and then I've got room in behind. As it is, I'm selfish, but it kind of bounces off Ramos and comes back to me. It works out well enough, and that, of course, is all L1 dribbling. Yeah, L1's what I use. I barely use tech. I'm trying to show it off here because I'm being more direct, but in most situations, I'm using L1. This one I cut the clip too early. But you can see, again, I'm kind of working Ribery away from everybody. I think I end up getting tackled here. So, poor editing on the clip for me, but also you can see I've worked myself into a spot where there's nothing really sustainable going on behind me. This one... Worth mentioning that my best attack in this match so far is the first one where I've really involved Fabinho. You can see working the ball back immediately gets me a chance forward. So worth mentioning again, if you're doubting the effectiveness of using the players behind the ball. And there you go. It's created so much depth for me to move forward into. It's lucky it doesn't get intercepted, but also again, pretty much my best chance this game. Nope, too far back. That is here. Let's take a look at the opponent's shape as well. It doesn't seem like they're in too bad of a shape. But then they've brought Ramos all the way out. Okay, that's what it is. So obviously big gap left in behind here. I think Benson Kerr has to go and try to cover and isn't quite able to get there. So not particularly well done on my part. That is opponent leaving a massive gap for me. I'll look here. So obviously one way to make the opponent fall back, so you've got your good spaces to attack into here, because you want to, I basically do want to make the opponents drop back here so that I've got my ability to attack through the center here. I don't really like being direct like this and just trying to go score every goal like a through ball. You know, I like my build up. So a lot of times I will make this run down the sideline just to make the opponents have to fall back and then cut back. And now I've got my depth generated. I've got players in front of me again. I've got support. So we work to Fabinho, Navas, Ribéry. It's a bit lucky, but aside from that, worth mentioning, once again, worked the ball to Fabinho, generated a phenomenal chance. So again, if you're doubting that. But that's part of the value, is just when you have the ball with players behind the ball, or when you have the ball with, players further back on the field, everyone's ahead of you. You've got, they can't make runs if you've got the ball here, unless you're just trying to do that, right? But if you do this, all of a sudden you've got a lot more movement being generated. That's worth keeping in mind. You're just attacking with more players. It's making the opponents have to cover more. The opponent's in a bit of a weird shape here because they're normally in a 4-4-2, but it's almost a 4-3-3 now. Working it back. Now we've got Navas making a decent run in here, which is going to bait somebody out. I feel pretty confident I can work the ball through there. This is lucky, obviously. Not the best dribble for me. I'm lucky to get it back. But I feel like either way, Ribéry either would have gotten in behind himself and just gone to score with him. As it is, it's Navas making the run in behind. And this is all L1 dribbling, just to make it a little fancier. In the second half, I'm definitely doing the other play style as well, and you can see, first attack, I think we're really seeing me use my center backs at all in. Back to center back, CDM here. And now look, just unbelievable amounts of space. If that was a better first touch, or if that didn't get blocked, I mean, that's a goal. And once again, this is just the value of moving it back. You can see every attack I'm showing you here, I've got ball works backward, I'm generating a scoring chance. You can see just, take a look here. Defensive shape is kind of all out of whack. And that's just because the opponent's being aggressive, they're stepping up, they're trying to cover the gaps that are left back here. I'm also stretching them a little bit wide too. That is worth mentioning, that it's not just, the horizontal stretching isn't just the switch. It can also be done by kind of working the ball out this way just with dribbling or maybe a pass, and then you can work the ball back out wide, or back centrally rather. So keep that in mind. Sometimes I'll work the ball wide just to go back center, or sometimes I'll work the ball backwards just to go back forward. Opponent's trying to cover stuff because I've worked the ball both wide and backwards, and now there's been gaps as they move back this way. A little bit of a risky pass in there, but I'm pretty confident with it. And now the opponents stepped forward to try to guard me, and then realized they have to go guard the run. The run's pinning them backwards. They have to guard the most dangerous thing, which is going to open up something really just as dangerous. This one here, we've got the ball deeper, and you'll see me hold the ball with the center backs a little bit longer once again. And this is all working the ball through the midfield, not really using the sideline. So once again, just showing you can be working the ball centrally. You don't have to use the fullbacks all the time as I get the ball out to the fullback. But I'll show this one more time. Because this little bit, it's that touch. It's that touch that does it, really. If you're wondering, it's the lingering. Now I've drawn this play because I think this is a decent defensive shape. This one, not so much. This player's not connected with anybody, and now I've got gaps my other players have moved into. You can explain it just by like, I really don't have a passing option. Now I've got passing options. Now they're stretching a little bit because there was one player out of position, and they're moving other players out. Nice little pass back there. And kind of a get the ball forward to go backward, to go forward again. And then this one is, I know what I'm doing here. The same kind of thing. I'm going this way to pin them back so that they're going to have to cover this way so that I can work the ball backwards again. There we are. A little bit of space. That's the goal. And like this is a bit of a direct attack. A little bit of creativity down here, but again, direct attack. But I'm able to be direct here because I did something to disorganize the opponent. All right. So the opponent's gotten in that bad state that I can't attack well in. This is a much shorter clip than I was expecting, but that's fine. This is me passing the ball forward and not really having something sustainable, so I think I need to be lingering with Ribery a little bit more here. Or just making the pass downward, perhaps. Or otherwise, yeah, I would probably like do my little stall dribbles and then see if I can get that one maybe. But, and this is part of the habit of if you get the ball to your attackers all the time and then you're thinking, oh, I've got the ball with the attacker, go attack. So I think it's breaking that habit of I don't have to get the ball to the attacker on every attack or, you know, at every opportunity just because they're open. Sometimes, you know, they need to make a little run off the ball so they get guarded so they open up space for somebody else to run into. But as it is, I'm being direct, got the ball all the way forward, lost it. This is, I think, the one switch of play I do in these highlights, and again, you can see the value. I don't need to explain this too much, but just to show off an in-game example, the thing I was talking about where the opponents will, instead of being, you know, like this shape, you can see they will go over to this side of the field, so instead they're, you know, the shape is all over the place, but you can see they've left a massive gap here, so you can see the value of switching. Obviously you get space on the other side of the field, I just don't enjoy it too much, but here's the value. See me linger a little bit with Rafinha. I'm pretty confident I can make this pass to Ney because I've got the run off of him. So all of these passes are being made with the knowledge that it looks threatening, that I could go attack with it, but actually the threat is really for someone else. A little bit of that linger dribble from Musiala. Should come up with a better word for it, but I'll just say he's lingering for now. I'm just trying to pull that opponent out a little bit out of space, opens up for somebody else. There you go. Once again, directness, kind of being effective in this game here, but I think I was hoping that Neymar would make a better run off the ball, but he kind of stutters and stops. Because you've got the depth for that triangle there, but it's not taken. Oh yeah, that one. Definitely lucky to not lose the ball there, but look at all the space I've generated here. We'll go down, fake it, back up, space, shot, goal. Let's evaluate a little bit more of why I'm generating space here. So once again, when you can be direct, you should. It's the most dangerous thing that the opponent has to go cover, so they're going to have to, no matter what, even if it's disorganizing them in some other way, they have to defend the most immediate opportunity, as you see them do there. Now Blanc is significantly out of position. Now they're controlling Vieira. Vieira's a little bit out of position, and that's made Putellas has kind of been left, or instead of being left center mid, she's kind of been center mid this whole time, but she's slightly moving over, which has left a giant pocket over here. This is me being too aggressive, too direct. I should be doing a so I can move more like that. I can do the drag back. I can do a ball scoop back this way. I can do a directional nutmeg. Instead, I'm trying to go this way, which again, the space is back here. That's what I should be trying to go into, but I get lucky, keep the ball. And now you see Putellas massively out of position here. So the shape is, like, this is really bad structure. So I'm going to be able to do something with it. And sometimes you're not able to tell exactly what. Like, is it going to be a run made here because that's where the pocket is? Is it going to be a run there? But I've got a lot of players occupying here, partially because Fabinho, I'm noticing now, has decided to make a run after this pass. Look at him go. That's my CDM. So sometimes you get little like free form things in this formation, which are nice. But yeah, here's, instead of being the flat four, they're in a diamond shape now. Vieira has to cover back pretty significantly, which opens space up somewhere else. And that's the value of going forward to go backward to go back forward again. There you go. Next clip here. Same idea. If the opponent's disorganizing, you can be direct, you should. And I'm trying to make them drop off here. But in the other clips, and when I was being more direct, I would have tried to go score something with Ribery here. Somebody in the comments said, you know, the other playstyle is never playing hero ball, and that's the idea here. I'm not trying to go get a goal scoring opportunity with Ribery. It's trying to create something for somebody else. So I'm going to linger here. Fabinho steps. You can see Fabinho's completely covered. Steps forward. Now he's a passing option. And then I realize he's open, but if I pass it to him immediately, I think the opponent's going to be able to keep a decent structure. So I'm just trying to pull Vieira that extra step or two out. See the space it generates there. Putellas has now come all the way over. The idea is, you know, probably go back to Fabinho just to make Putellas come all the way over here, which opens up space here. Getting a scoring opportunity that way. Fabinho just lacking tiki-taka, I guess, because the pass is off. The first touch just isn't quite right. But you can see how well made of an attack that would have been otherwise. Opponent, and sometimes this is like when I'm saying disorganized and organized and compact and all of that. Sometimes the opponent doesn't even look that disorganized, but there would be another tactical word for it. I don't know if I can remember at the moment, but it'd be like positional superiority or something like that, where you'd have just your players in better position. Even though they're organized, I've got players in the pocket, even though it's not that bad of a defensive shape. I'm not really good in attacking spot there anyway. So that's part of recognizing your own attacking shape, which I'm not talking about as much in this video, but keep in mind where your players are on offense as well. Surprised I didn't pass that back to Fabinho, but I guess it accomplishes a similar thing here. You can see where the space is. And we're going down here to work the ball back up, and you'll see the gap it leaves back up. So opponent has stretched all the way down here, and this is what I was talking about in one of the tactics things. You know, they don't, sometimes you'll have players, excuse me, they rarely keep their same shape all the way. So like, you'll either have 2 players commit all the way forward, and then this one won't in the gaps here, or you'll have 3 players commit all the way, but this one won't in the gaps here. So you can see, as I'm working the ball out wide here, like, out of shape here, I feel like I can get the ball forward and sustain it. And they've all collapsed down here, which means, yeah, I wasn't getting it to Fabinho, but I think I'll work space back up wide. This is just too aggressive of a skill move. I'm thinking he's going to step to me with Blanc, and so I'm thinking instead of the yard of space here, it'll be a half yard or whatever. So I think the aggressive skill move will work. As it is, the opponent was a little bit less aggressive in just marking the space instead of marking me, which means I should have done a less aggressive skill move into the space down here and probably found either that pass or this pass. A little bit of a misread from me. Slightly good, or somewhat good defending from the opponent. This one, we've got the ball all the way deep here. Let's see how we work it forward. And I was talking about this in one of the tactics things as well, that you'll have, it's rare that the defenders will move all the way forward to keep that shape, right? So the defense is still being all the way back here. There might be an off-the-ball run being made by like Ribery to pin them back. They have to cover this thing first so they don't step forward. But regardless, you can see the massive gap here. Gets the ball forward. Good pocket of space here with Navas. I decide here, instead of being direct, I'll just accept that going backwards will probably continue to keep the opponent disorganizing themselves. Good pocket there. Instead of being aggressive again, we're working backwards, and now just like this is the biggest pocket you can imagine. That's an absurd amount of space for Neymar. Thinking back on it, I probably would have worked the ball to Navas or Musiala because I've got three here. I feel like I can create something with those three. But we were talking before, working the ball up will often make the opponents move positionally upward. Kind of see here, again, even though it looks like Putellas is in a good spot, it's more that Navas is creating an even better spot. And, you know, these players have moved over here. But this one hasn't moved quite far enough, so the pocket's in the center here, more so than this. Well, there's a pocket here, but I can't move into it as well. And now I can. There's the goal. Look at it one more time. Try to see how the opponent gets broken down a little bit more. Bad defensive structure. Midfield's okay here. Midfield is no longer okay because Vieira is being pinned forward, I guess this would be. So instead of being forced to retreat, Vieira is feeling, I guess the AI is feeling like he has to stay on Navas, which is keeping him more this way, which means massive gap up here. And now the AI has decided to make Vieira all the way up here. A little bit ridiculous, maybe unfortunate for the opponent, but that's just a... Vieira is just kind of wandering, I suppose. But you can see, again, the value, even if it's not necessarily the opponent's fault. Holding the ball in one spot for a little bit will just cause everybody to change position elsewhere, just a little bit as well. Work the ball back into all that space. Now I've got the depth, I can pass it back to somebody. This is why I love having the center forward on false 9. You get so many cool like depth opportunities. That's my supposed striker, and he's nowhere near the furthest forward player on the field. It's an aggressive pass there. We got it back. And once again, this is the... maybe I should come up with a name for it. It's not a possession-based play style, but it's one that really values verticality and depth. You can see how effective all of this was as well. Just create such a good opportunity. And again, it doesn't even feel like the opponent's defending that badly. This is pretty standard defense. They're lacking like the really overpowered high press or something like that maybe, but it's not like they're playing particularly bad. It's just that it's generating so much space for me. There's a pass backwards to go forward again. There we are. I feel like I can get the ball forward to Rafinha, even though he doesn't look and that good of an opportunity to maintain possession. It's not that he's well supported, it's that I've got a giant pocket here to work in. It's a big enough space where, you know, a player like him with his L1, I feel like I can hold on to the ball here no matter what and just wait for a run to be made. I was thinking, as I was playing, that the run would be Musiala here. But I'm keeping my options open. I'm not just... you know, dribbling like down this way, just hoping for this one thing. It's like, okay, he actually didn't make that run. I've got another option. Now, Navas has taken such a good spot here. Opponent has dragged Frimpong out a little bit. Now Frimpong retreats, I think partially because Lam's making a run. And now we've pulled Renard all the way out of position. That leaves Navas in a pocket, which leaves Rafinha in a pocket he can also run into. Yeah, hopefully that helps. Perhaps a little unfortunate to do this at the very end of EA FC 24, where, you know, it took me a long time this year to really realize all of the stuff that was working for me as well. There was maybe like a month, 2-3 months around Christmas, a little bit after, where I just couldn't really break the high press. EA made some patches that changed some things, and I couldn't figure it out. Unfortunate, again, that the game's almost done here. You know, I wish I could have helped out some of you a little bit earlier. But starting to make content at the end of the year. Hopefully we'll carry some momentum into 25. Maybe I'll plan on doing this kind of analysis thing again. We'll do like a longer video seeing if these kinds of ideas are still working, what tactics I'm using to accomplish them, what kinds of players. Maybe like one big video here or there, maybe once or twice a month, once every 2 months maybe. And then maybe a couple times a week I'll do like one specific game where instead of doing like a 30-minute video, it'll be 5-10 minutes, but smaller tactical ideas or what I'm finding really effective, or maybe the games I'm not finding effective and what I could have done better. All of that said, if there are any games that I do play that you do want to see in full that you think would really be insightful on your end, please do let me know. That would A, give me more content to make, but also B, help me see the game a little bit through your eyes as well. Figure out a little bit more what you all as commenters are missing from your own game and how I can try to accomplish giving you a little bit more on that end. This was my first FIFA, EAFC analysis video, so do leave any feedback you have on this. Hopefully this was helpful with all the drawing and the clips and all of that. Hopefully you understand the tactical ideas as well. Hopefully it wasn't too long-winded. If it was, do let me know. We're here for, decent tactical, in-depth conversation, but if you want me to be more brief, maybe I can make some shorter videos as well. But, yeah, any feedback, again, greatly appreciated. So, comment, subscribe, like, all of that good stuff. I'll see you in the next video. Hope you enjoyed. Peace.